I'm about to break it down for you. Not because I'm smart. I learned about this because it interests me. And what I know, it's going to interest you too. Today I'm going to explain the overcomplicated stimulus in America and why it's all about greed. But first, to understand that, we have to talk about the consumer-driven economy. Essentially what that means is that the consumers or the people keep buying things, whether it's cars, food, books, all kinds of unnecessary spending, and growth over time is what fuels the world economy. So if there's more people and they're buying more stuff and it's more expensive, the new iPhone or the new SUV, it's going to propel us forward with this growth. Now all of that is regulated by the government, and what they do is they make and enforce the laws for the people. And the idea is that by paying taxes, that the government is essentially going to protect the people and the land, and they'll provide safety and order. Essentially it's called the social contract or social construct. But essentially the idea is to protect the old, the weak, the less fortunate, make sure everybody has like a minimum level of food, health, security, etc., as being part of that society. Now the government itself is all funded through taxes. Now there's various kinds of taxes, everything from sales tax, income tax, road fees when you register a vehicle, all these things, the roads, the schools, the police, firefighters, politicians, they're all paid for and funded through these various taxes. And the taxes once again come from the people. So with a few exceptions, everybody is required to pay taxes, whether you're on regular working American, whether you're on disability. The IRS and the Treasury have a direct route through you, as most Americans, whether they're working or not, do have to file taxes every year. So if you could file taxes every year, if they wanted to get money to the people, they could do it easily if they wanted to. So why all these extra fancy new programs and all these overloaded old systems? Why not just send out money to the people to keep things going like some other countries did in the meantime, just to get everybody by? Well, here's why. It's because of greed. They say it was to help people out and to stop fraud. They say it was for insurance purposes, to keep people tied to their old employment so they had jobs to go back to. But none of that makes any sense. It's not even true, honestly, if you think about it. The world has changed. Most people will never go back to their old job. It might not even exist. Whole sectors are going to go away. Childcare might be too expensive, so only one person in the household may go back to work. Schools might not reopen. You may have an underlying medical condition. The truth is the world has changed and things change. So it makes no sense to just stall and hang on to this old idea of, oh, we'll just wait a few months and then we can go back to normal. So here we are months later, but all they did was waste time. They stalled but fixed nothing, left most people with little help and less answers, waiting for a hero to show up and save us from reality. But it's different this time. Most of us stayed home. We did our part. Meanwhile, banks, airlines, executives got trillions in bailouts. The economy is fueled by spending of the people. The government is funded by people spending through taxes. So if you turn off the economy, there's nothing left to fund the government. So things like police, firefighters, senators, even whole states don't have money to operate. Now we've spent trillions of dollars, and who have we helped? Only banks, corporations, and the stock market. We've essentially spent a ridiculous amount of money we didn't have to help a disproportionately small amount of people who didn't need it. And no offense, but I'd rather lose a rental car company or an airline than millions of Americans lose their homes. Why is bankruptcy acceptable for people but not for corporations? Many big corporations and millionaires incorporate overseas and use every loophole possible to avoid taxes. Meanwhile, your average American pays their share of taxes and does their part. So the money is spent on businesses. Many will still close or lay off millions of Americans, and Americans are no better off. Neither is the economy or the government. Not to mention, the majority of these loans are to be treated as forgivable or essentially grants. So in all reality, spending that same money on Americans to keep households running, keep the economy fueled through spending, and keep people comfortable through these tough times would be way more efficient and way more effective. You continue to fund the government through existing taxes and keep the gears turning, all while not overcomplicating things because we're using the existing systems that are in place. So wait a minute, that's simple. It makes perfect sense. It seems like an easy way to keep the system running while we sort the world's problems out. Instead of a bunch of new programs, we just do what works. We don't create any new unnecessary problems. So why did they overcomplicate everything? The answer is simple: greed from the rich. They spent over $30,000 per taxpayer already, and I doubt most taxpaying Americans will see a fraction of that. So where does all the extra money go? It's called disproportionate wealth distribution. The main reason this is also complicated is to keep it fair. If all taxpaying Americans just got $30,000, it would help the poor the most. For many, it would be 2 to 4 times their yearly salary, and taxed, of course, to keep the government running. For your regular middle class people, it's enough to comfortably cover expenses through the pandemic and even keep the economy going through regular spending. That all sounds pretty good. What's the drawback, you ask? That way isn't fair to those on top. They have multiple houses, multiple cars, office buildings, bills, more expenses, more needs. So if everyone gets the same, they lose. So you want to know where all that extra money went? Why everything is so complicated? The answer is greed. The worst part is, my way, at least the economy and the government gets funded. Not to mention tax-paying Americans, the heart of this country, get what they deserve. But instead, here we are months later, trillions of dollars spent, and who did it help? Corporations and the 1%. The worst part is, not only did we compound the problems we had, we created new ones. When the dust settles, your average working class American will bear the brunt of this pandemic. I just hope it's enough to wake people up to the corruption and bureaucracy that rules our country. There's an old saying, follow the money. And in this case, the trail is clear. Look, that's my breakdown. You might not like it or agree, but that's how I see it. The truth is, I'm not that smart. I just learned this stuff because it interests me. And I hope now it interests you too.